Llama, the heads-up world champion, calls of 100 blinds in a pot of 5, and he loses. Now, when you look at this hand, you're going to think, this is completely stupid. But trust me, there's a very smart reason why he made that call. I'm going to show you the hand in question. Then I'm going to show you what happened before that gave him the idea to make that play, and the mistake that gave it all away. And after that, there's a bonus hand that will show you how to use game flow to gain an advantage after something like this happens. So here's the hand in question. It's a single raise pot, heads up, where we have ace 6 of clubs. Flop is queen 3-9 two-tone, and it goes check check. Flush draw, obviously. On turn, there's not much of a decision for us. Seemingly, later on you'll see why the hands that put this into context make this decision actually the most important in the hand. Goes check check again, and the river completes the flush. I mean, great. Go for the check. Now, the reason why we check here is, well, the nut flush could take a few lines, but the most frequent line is probably going to be the check, because we are protecting ace-x with the ace of clubs that wants to see a showdown, and we are also allowing those ace-x with the ace of clubs to be turned into bluffs alongside the nut flush. By the way, if you want to learn more about this, you should probably check out my CFP, DEADREAD, linked somewhere. So yeah, make sure to check it out. So we go for the check. And Llama bets. And we jam. Now, this is not the right play. In theory, we are supposed to check raise smaller because Llama here is not uncapped. He has enough flushes, he has enough things for him to be able to 3-bet the river enough that we would make more money, supposedly, but check raising small. But what if I told you that if we go this size, we get called by queen deuce no club? Then the picture changes a bit, right? Then all in seems like maybe the biggest EV play. So you might think this is insane. This hand looks stupid. It makes no sense. But it's actually quite smart. I'm going to show you the hand before, or a few hands, it happened a few hands before, where you'll see how a mistake that I made gives him the opening to try this line. So, actually, this hand, queen deuce. This one is a bum pot. Okay. Queen deuce, check, check. We get a flush draw on the turn. Okay. Seems familiar. The other hand, we had a flush draw on the turn. The flush completed on the river. Here we have a flush draw on the turn. But sadly, well, we overbet. Right? Let's start there. We overbet, which is a GTO mistake. Now, this was just an honest mistake. I knew that queen high would for sure mostly check because here we have a ton of air, but I thought maybe queen deuce, right? The lowest kicker. Maybe I thought that one could sometimes bet. In reality, it can't. Any queen high here has to check. So we start with the error that spawned everything. Llama calls. We hit a deuce. There's not much to do here other than checking. Llama checks, and he shows down kings. It's a pretty standard hand other than the mistake I made. But here Llama made one little mistake. He told me. He sent me a DM. He said, "You're terrible. This play is awful," right? And that was enough to start a series of hands that used this game flow to develop. So we go back to a6. And now on the turn, it seems like we actually do have a decision, right? because we could bet just to fuck with him, essentially. Or we could do the actual correct play, which is to check. We went for the check. Now, he bets, we jam, and he calls. Do you understand now why he called? The reason is quite elegant, really. He thinks that we don't check enough good flushes on the turn. We are repping the best of the flushes on river, right? And his read is that we just don't check these flush draws. So he made this call. Quite smart, right? Now, the problem is that based on what he had told me in the DMs, right? Based on calling out my play as bad, I already had a decent suspicion that he was going to try to attack these flush completing spots. But the real sauce came a few hands after, where now we're both completely updated on the information. Now we both know sort of what the other person is thinking. And that's how the next hand got quite interesting. So next hand is another bomb pot, heads up. King Jack 3. We have Queen 7. And the turn's a 9. Now we have a Queen High flush draw on a board where Queen High is the second highest high card. Sounds familiar? That's exactly what happened in the first hand. It was a bomb pot, flop went check, check. We had a flush draw, and Queen High was the second highest high card. Now, Llama is a very smart guy, right? He's shown down that Queen Deuce call, which is insane. And he understands that my bet's exploit. So if we want to counter exploit him, putting a lot of money in the check check line when the flush completes, our counter exploit should be to start putting all of our flushes in the check check line, so that when the flush completes, all of our flush draws, sorry, in the check check line, so that when the flush completes, we are able to go for value and get stationed, right? That's our best counter exploit versus someone who is calling everything when the turn goes check check and the flush completes. That's the best counter exploit. But he knows that. So what do? We bet. Llama calls. And the river is the ace of clubs. Now, this is a very interesting river because it's a river where we're supposed to have only small, medium sizes. It doesn't make sense to have too big of a size because we shouldn't really have this hand in range, right? We shouldn't really have a lot of Queen High flush draws betting the turn, while he has all of them. He should always call the Queen High flush draw on the turn. Right? So this is a spot where he has an advantage in high flushes. We can have some low flushes, right? But we shouldn't have a lot of the highest flushes. So the sizings to use in this spot are small, medium sizes. So what do? We overbet, right? Based on what we were talking about, the fact that Llama thinks our best counter exploit is to start checking all of the flush draws on turn to exploit the fact that he stations when the turn goes check, check, and the flush completes. We need to rep the nut flush in the check line. And Llama calls with King Deuce. And the only thing left to say is, whoa, you really bet Queen High again. And that's the video. If you want to watch me bamboozle Prodigy, check out the next video.